Hey, glad to see you. Glad you're back. Uh, Business management. This is one of my favorites, but they're all one of my favorites. They're all important and they all need done. So let's just dive right in. There's an entire section on cash flow management that you've already taken. So we're not going to touch too deep on it on this, but in the overall encompassing job of business management, cash flow management is one, and it's an important one for sure. Uh, you need to make sure you have the money that you need when you need it, before you need it. It sucks having to scramble around and find what money you need to just so you can keep operating. You want to always just look out there in the future, just as far as you can see, and forecast, project, budget, have it in place before you need it. Um, every month, you should have more money, more cash than last month. I was going to say every day, but that doesn't always work out. But every month, when you reconcile your books or when your accountant does, you should have more available cash every month, every quarter, every year. Because rainy days are coming. They're coming. They will in business. It's a real thing. And the biggest thing to always keep in mind is no one ever went broke with money in the bank. If you got plenty of money in the bank, you're not going to go broke. And you have options. Okay, cash flow management is important and you need to focus on those things. You need to give them some real estate in your mind. But also productivity. There's some big losses of productivity that happen in our industry. And you need to just be aware of them, and B, make plans how you deal with them and want to deal with them better in the future. How much time do you give away on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? Excuse me. Things like detention. You know, they tell you to be here at a certain time and you're there half hour early, and then you sit there and wait for hours, sometimes half a day, sometimes. And make sure you get paid for that. I wouldn't just sit there for nothing. We have fueling, and sometimes we can be way more efficient with that than we are. Our daily inspections, post and pre. Of course, there's traffic jams. You go into a bigger city, and a lot of your time is just dead, sitting there on the interstate parking lot system of America that we have. Of course, some of you are visitors. Some of you like to interact with other people, like a lot. Sometimes you're unaware of how much of a talker you are, and people can't wait to get away from you. So if that's you, ease up a bit. But irregardless, when you put your time in, when you start your day with your ELD, your 14 hours is running. So it's time to work. You can visit after, within reason. Now, it's good to visit with fellow truck drivers, with customers, with potential future customers, broker. Like there's a line between professional chit chat and genuine care for the other person, and then there's just BSing after that. You're just wasting time. It's okay. Hey, how you doing? A little small talk. Weather's nice. Fuel's high. Blah, blah, blah. Now let's get to work, do what we need to do. And then again at the end, hey, we got unloaded. Great. Thanks a bunch. It's been great. Hope you have a good day. See ya. Versus sit there and talk for 45 minutes or an hour, which is going to make you late for the next appointment, which trickles on down to the next day. And before you know it, if you could actually add it up, you have lost weeks of time every year that you could have been running and making money. Again, some of it is included in our business model. Fueling, inspections, traffic, like we price our service enough, or we should. We price our service enough that we're covering those costs, because there's an actual cost to detention. Some places, some brokers, some shippers will pay you after a certain time if for detention. That's a good thing. Make sure you get those. These are some of those things that the new authorities don't understand and don't get. They think, okay, yeah, they see the rate posted on a load board, or a broker throws them their first offer, and they think, okay, yeah, I'll do it. I'm desperate and I need to work, and I need to go, so I'll do it. Yeah. They don't realize that it's maybe 4 stops, 5 stops, 1 pickup and 5 drops in a very congested town, and they might take 2 days to get them done, and they didn't really realize that. And so they should have made about double of what they did, but they don't know that. Again, just have some limits in your mind of how, like, you have to be flexible. In this type of business, nothing is perfect. You have to be very flexible in every aspect of it and sort of roll with the flow. Don't get too uptight about any of it. And when it comes to this, you can actually turn your customers off, and they won't want to work with you if you're worried about every single second of every minute that you're getting paid. You need to have some give and take. When there's a pattern, you need to try to look for patterns. When I always work for this broker, the shipper, it's always this way. And I'm going to make sure I make enough money, because I always get held up doing something. What percentage of the time are you actually making money? You add up those things, and obviously the longer runs you have, the more time you're driving, so that makes more sense. But if you were working just in the same town and you were charging, say, hourly or by the mile, but maybe it's $15 a mile is what you're charging. It all depends on where you're at, what you're doing. But you can't just run 1 mile for the same rate that you would run across the country. You can't run the same cost. So let's just say it takes you a half an hour to get loaded, and you have to drive 1 mile, and it takes you another half hour to get unloaded. Okay, it took you some time to get there. You had deadhead there, whatever. At a bare minimum, you're 3-4 hours into this project, not to mention your opportunity cost. So you've basically killed a half a day. So you need to have a base rate of $500, $600, $700, $1,000, something. And I realize that means you're charging $500 a mile, but it's your time that we're trying to protect. Ideally, we want your truck to be making money 100% of the time. It's not going to, but at least when you're on the clock, keep it as high as possible. These are profitability killers. because you have to cover your overhead costs anyways. The quicker, the fewest time, the fewest loads, the fewest number of days you in a month or a week or a day, the short amount of time as possible that you can get those overhead costs covered, the quicker you're on to making more money. Your money is made at the end of the day, not the beginning of the day, is my point. One thing to differentiate yourself with your customers is to communicate. And you want to err on the side of over communicating, but don't be annoying. And you have to read the situation and the people to understand where that line is. And a lot of times you have to cross the line a little to realize you're there and then back off. When you take a load and you commit to a load, I'd make contact right then. I'd make contact with the pickup location if you need an appointment or not. Figure those logistics out. Realize it may be in an hour from now, and it may be tomorrow or next week. You know, you might be on Thursday, Wednesday, setting something up for next week. But I would still make contact. Hey, what does this look like to get loaded? The smaller the place, the less they'll do appointments and things. So then you just sort of feel it out and go from there. Same thing with your drop-off location. And at this point, I like to have a really bird's eye view and just let them know, hey, I'm planning to pick up this afternoon. And then when I deliver there, it'll be like Monday or Tuesday. Is that going to work? What does that look like for you guys? You know, and if they say, oh, well, we can take you till Tuesday afternoon, then you know you can take your time a little. Or if, gosh, we only have an appointment, we only have availability Monday morning first thing, then you know you better get to hustling. And if you're using a broker, your dispatcher, you definitely want to keep them in the loop as well. And if appointments are necessary, you need to keep communicating. Sorry, if the appointments are necessary, you don't need to communicate anymore. That's your appointment time. If it's way out there, if it's a week out, you might call halfway between now and then to just confirm. So, hey, are we still good for Thursday early afternoon? Okay, got it. The further out it is, the more you need to communicate kind of halfway and then halfway again. But if it's just, okay, we'll see you tomorrow at 3, you probably don't need to communicate again. But we're pretending in this case that we're going on a little bit longer run. So in that same example as above, as your ETA gets narrowed down to give or take a 12-hour window, instead of 2 days, instead of 48 hours, Monday or Tuesday, now we kind of know that, hey, you know, the way things have gone, I'm going to be there Monday afternoon or Tuesday morning. How is that looking for you guys? When's best for you? Or maybe you've got something you've got to do Tuesday morning. And so you're like, hey, can I come in Monday afternoon? And again, as your ETA gets narrowed down even further, then you can narrow it down to within a couple hours. And I would always give myself a range. But again, if you have an appointment, you just better make the appointment. And don't be too early. Some places will charge you. Can't be over, or, you know, half hour early or whatever. They want you kind of right on time. So learn those places and learn those things and just be someone who's easy to get along with. So again, when we get closer, be like, hey, I should be there around 2 or 3 Monday afternoon. You know, this would be like Monday at 10 or 11, like 4 hours notice, 10 or 11. Does that make sense? Give them some hours. And then if they're like, no, we need you to be here by 2:30, you still have a little time. You can make it up, or or lose it. Or if you're not going to be there till 4 or 5, they're going to be, then you can communicate about the plan. Point is over communicate and be someone who communicates. And last but not least, but after it's done, even if it's not required, let the shipper and the broker know that you dropped it off and that everything went good. In their mind, they're thinking, I just sent you with some stuff and there you went. And, maybe I haven't heard, whatever. I knew you were supposed to get there Monday or Tuesday. But then when I get even just a text from you, just unloaded, everything went good, then I can move on with my life. I no longer have to wonder and sometimes worry or stress about where you're at, what you're doing, if it's all going to work out. And they'll remember this. They will remember that you over communicated, you weren't annoying, you were easy to get along with, and that when it was over, you put their mind at ease, and they'll remember that. They'll be like, okay, yeah, I like that. I'm going to call that guy again. Risk. Whew. Risk. Not the board game. We're not going to be playing the board game today. That is a fun game. But the risk in your business, and again, this is about within your business management role at your company. So you take your truck driver hat off and you put on your business manager hat. Okay, you need to make sure you have the proper insurance. Cargo insurance being included in that. If you get into a wreck, even if it's someone else's fault, you don't want to be underinsured. I promise you. Because who gets to pay for that? You. If you want to stay in business, you get to cover quite a lot of things, which is why you need to make sure that you're charging enough. I would always make sure that your insurance levels will cover equipment replacement, or at a bare minimum, the payoff for your lease or your note, not your mortgage, your equipment loan. At least be able to pay it off and walk away from it. An interesting fact about insurance adjusters are each state has their own. So when you get into a jam somewhere, each state has their own claims adjusters, and they have kind of the call. There is a system where you can appeal and get a different one if it's a bad enough situation. So it's been enough years now that it's kind of a funny story. Not really. Probably won't tell it in a funny way. But I had 2 trucks that were basically identical. They were within about 50,000 miles of each other. They were 2007s, 379s with the C15, 13 speeds. They were the exact same truck. They're both white. Everything was the same on them. And within 10 days, I had 2 guides, two drivers total them. Just total them. One was in Kansas, one was in Utah. Within 10 days of each other. It was an interesting experience. But what was amazing is I had them registered, and I'm relying on memory, so might not be exactly right, but I think I put them down as like a $40,000 value. When you're doing your insurance, they ask what kind of value. The Kansas claim adjuster, he couldn't have spent a lot of time. He just went and looked at the truck, did his job, and was like, yeah, this thing's totaled, and put it on and just paid the entire 40. The Utah adjuster, and I'm not saying Utah is bad, and I'm not saying Kansas is good. Each adjuster has a judgment call to make. The Utah adjuster said, this truck is not worth 40 grand. It's only worth, I think he said 31. And we fought back and forth, and we negotiated, and I got that number. I didn't get the 40, but I also didn't get the 31. But he wanted to just pay me 31 for this truck. And so point is, have them insured for enough, but don't have them insured for 100, because you might not, in that situation, if they're only worth 30 or 40, don't insure them for 100. You're going to be paying higher premiums for something you probably aren't going to get. So yeah, lost a little money on that, because I was paying premiums as if my equipment was worth 40,000. Still a sore spot. To me, it's like buying life insurance for, say, $1 million, and then when it comes time to pay, they say, oh, we don't think that you're worth $1 million, even though we quoted you and you've been paying premiums based on $1 million valuation. We're only going to pay you something else. To me, that's not right, but whatever. So overinsure your assets, but not excessively. Make sure you can get them replaced. Walk away without having any harm done. And actually, on that same wreck in Utah, I ended up owing, it wasn't a lot, but at that moment when I just had one in Kansas go down, that cargo, he was empty, so that was lucky. But the one in Utah, I was about $20,000. I owed about 20 grand because my cargo insurance wasn't enough. So things changed and I just didn't pay attention. Just make sure, like, it's worth it. And then, I got to pay that. Like, they were like, oh, it's okay, no big deal. No, the shipper wanted to be made whole, and I got to pay for it. The other huge spot that can be career, business, catastrophic ending is credit. The fact is 98% of all of your brilliant ideas, your great ideas that are like inspired from the heavens, really aren't going to work out. They just aren't. You think you got it all figured out, and then once you start putting facts into your assumption model, things change. And the problem with credit, with debt, is that it amplifies those problems. So if I'm gonna, quote unquote, get it not quite right 98% of the time, and I put it all on credit, 100% on credit, I'm setting myself up for a risky game. If you've ever owed anyone money, a bank or a person, and you get anxious and you get stressed, it's the risk of that credit that makes you not sleep at night. And it's not a fun way to live. Trust me, it is not a fun way to live. The larger your equity position is in this brilliant idea of yours, the less risk you'll have. And that kind of goes without saying. It sucks maybe if you lost it, but at least you had it to lose. Because what is credit? What is debt? You are basically gambling your future earnings based on your knowledge today. I mean, what else is a mortgage on your house besides a promise to pay because I'm going to be able to work and make these payments for the next several decades? It's a guarantee from you that your earning potential and that it's all going to work out in the future. So you're leveraging your future income. So I don't need to keep going, but it's a real business killer. Credit is. And credit is not income. If you get a line of credit from the bank and you can just go to operating and do a bunch of stuff, it's not income. Henry Ford, in his autobiography, says, and again, he's talking from building cars, that standpoint, not trucks. But he said, he's talking about other businessmen in his era and how they're always going to the bank and borrowing money. And he says, money comes from the shop. It doesn't come from the bank. And in our case, in our business, money comes from loads. Money comes from the highway. Money comes from working, not from credit. Be really careful. And of course, distracted driving is, to me, is one of the biggest things that'll kill your business too. This whole foundations course is just about bringing you into the awareness of all the things that could catastrophically kill your business. And we want you to be in business a year from now. That's the goal for the foundations. So put the damn phones down. You've seen them. I've seen them. They're all over the road. I've been run off the road, and guys don't even know. They're just stuck on their phones trying to drive. It's not good, guys. Gonna dive just a little bit more into credit. If you have not upgraded to the mastery trainings, we go in pretty deep into business credit, personal credit, managing those, and keeping yourself in a healthy credit situation. So what is the worst type of debt? Debt on depreciating assets. Now we're talking kind of high finance here. Things are either going up in value or they're going down in value. A depreciating asset is one that is going down in value, like a truck, like a car, like a camp trailer. You can just about guarantee 100% of the time that a year from now, they're worth less than they are today. You can go buy one brand new, straight off the lot, shiny, not a mark on it. And even if you never even use it, it's going to lose value every day, every week, every month, every year. It's going down in value. So that's the worst kind of debt, is having credit on something that's going down in value. But what sort of things am I mostly talking about? Never buy dinner on a credit card or fuel because it's consumed. Or is it? Is fuel kind of an investment into future income? That argument could go either way. Movies, basically all the personal things that you think you need to buy those on credit is not a good thing, because it is for sure. You buy dinner today, literally tomorrow your investment is in the toilet. If there is such thing as better type of debt, it's at least things, they may still be depreciating assets, but they at least have the chance to make money, like a truck, like equipment that we're going to use as a business expense to create more income. The parts for that truck, the fuel for that truck, all of those, they're still not great. That truck is still going down in value. If you're working it, you can outpace the depreciation. You can not only cover the cost of the depreciation, but you can cover the cost of all the other expenses and even make money. The best thing, if there is a best thing to use credit on, it's something that is going up in value. That could be, you could bundle it all into a thing that we call a trucking business. When you get to that stage in your business, real estate, some mutual funds and stocks, some of those things, some of the time, can be appreciating assets. Point is, you really want to be in a high equity position. 100% equity position in everything you do is the best. So work towards that. That's the goal. Get there eventually. You don't want to be operating with as high a credit as you probably are right now the entire time you're running this business. And some people are like, oh, I pay my credit cards off every month. Is that okay? It's fine until it isn't anymore. When you play with fire, you get burned. Just credit cards are just not, and even lines of credit with high interest are just not, they're not your friends. They're not in business with you. They're there to take money from you. You need to get into a position where you're paying debt off. You can do kind of the cash flow analysis as to the efficiency that the efficiency of each one of your debts. We go into all that into the mastery course, the mastery training. So if you want more of that, or you can do like the Dave Ramsey smallest to largest type of deal. You can do the Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Poor Dad method of paying the highest interest first. No matter how you want to do it, it's fine. Just get the worst types of debt, the consumer debt, gone. Like, you need to operate out of cash for those things for sure, 100%, no BS. If you are going to borrow a little money, at least do it on something that has a chance of making money enough to outpace the depreciation. Statistics. Now I'm reminding you of school time, but running a business off of statistics are how large businesses operate. And there's some key ones that are just important. Your fuel percentage. Because it's your second largest cost, drivers need paid, and that includes yourself. They need paid. There isn't a lot of flexibility. There's not a lot you can do to whittle that down. And if you are hiring cheaper drivers, they might not be the best drivers that you want. So to me, the driver expense, there's very little you can do about it, but the fuel, you can do things about it. Ideally, you want that 20% of your gross income. So if you're making 25 grand a month, that's your gross income for the month, you would like your fuel bill to be no more than 5 grand. You can still operate when it gets up to be around 33% or so. But you're starting to run out of money. That's starting to take profit right out of you. Now, why would fuel be that high? Again, we're basing it off of gross income. So it could be your rates are lower, you're not making enough income, or your costs are too high. And you need to look at both of those all the time. It never ends. Your driver pay should be around 33%. Now, this is a total all-in number. And that can fluctuate up to 40, down to 25. And what I'm saying is don't offer your drivers 33%. You've got taxes and insurance and other costs keeping them going. So a lot of times driver pay is worth around 25%. And then with the additional cost, it's going to cost you around 30, 35. So just make sure you know your model. And again, the driver includes yourself. You should be paying yourself as if you were a driver, because that's the work you're performing. The admin jobs. Here's one of the things that happen when you start expanding. You think, okay, I have this truck working. I'm just going to go to the house and just do all the admin work. Well, that truck can't pay that much. That a single truck operation cannot pay your wages, what you're accustomed to taking. Now, it's okay if you're only going to take the percentage that the company, your business, can allow for the admin jobs. This should be held around 15% of your gross income. Again, all of these are based on your gross income. If you're trying to build a fleet, it can't, 1, 2, even 3 trucks cannot pay your wages. You cannot replace your income on that few of trucks. You just can't. The money just isn't there, because there's only so much money in every load. Roughly 20 to 30% is your driver pay. 20 to 30% is going to go to fuel. Your truck payment should be quite a bit lower than your other two, but it's still a big cost. If you own it outright, it's going to be 0% other than maintenance. So it'll never be 0. I shouldn't have put 0. There's always going to be some costs, but shouldn't be any more than 15%. So if it is, you have a problem. You're either not making enough income, you picked the wrong truck for a part-time trucking venture, or you bought way too much truck. Same thing with your trailer, your dispatching, your business management. Each portion has kind of a lot that it fits into. It has a range that it's worth. And so if you're going to hire a dispatcher at 10%, say, and he or she will do some of your business management stuff, it comes with some perks, like maybe some lower fuel, or they will help maybe they'll file your IFTAs for you, or whatever. If they will take on some of that business management role, or you lease on with a company, and a lot of times you'll pull their trailer, you'll get factoring, you'll get dispatching, you might even get a fuel card, all for 10%. And so then that means there's more money available other places. And at the end of the day, you're going to either be in a negative profit situation, which is called a loss, or, maybe up to 20%. And I know if you add all those up, it's going to be more than 100%, but there's a range in each one. And this is where the management of your statistics and of your business come into play. Okay, your favorite part, homework. What jobs are you currently doing in your business? And what are you getting paid? If you're driving, you're doing everything. You should get paid for all the jobs, unless you're investing into your company with, a certain jobs. If you could hire a driver, I'm just going to use some numbers, and I'm going to use some weird numbers so that it'll maybe make more sense. So put it together as a concept. I'm not saying this is what drivers are worth. This is what drivers used to be worth. But let's say that you could go hire the typical truck driver for $3,000 to $4,000 a month, and you're paying yourself $8,500. That's not going to work. Even if your company can theoretically afford it, you really can't. So in that case, you should just hire the driver for half of the cost and you go do something else. You drive another truck. And what the second portion is, what are you going to do? Start implementing today, this week, to improve your equity position so that you have more cash every week, every month than you had last week and last month. Your cash and equity positions need to always be on an upward trend. Always. If they're not, you're in trouble. Okay, we'll see you on the next one.